Okay, so here we are. This is year number 2 for our garden. Last year we put down some potting soil bags. I believe we put down 4 to 6 of those potting soil bags directly over the grass and planted right into the potting soil bags. And we got that tip from somebody on the internet who talked about that as being a good way to get your garden started and not having to dig up the grass and do all that. So we did that, and it seems to have killed the grass for the most part underneath, and we got a modest crop last year. Quite a bit of tomatoes. Learned that we don't have to put in quite as many tomato plants. They were kind of growing all over each other and kind of a mess, but we did produce some tomatoes. Sorry we didn't give you enough updates on that garden last year. Hopefully we'll do better this year. So here we are, year 2. The soil is good. We just got to do a little weeding in here. This is about an 8 by 8 foot area, and I put up these little modest posts and some hardware cloth just to keep the critters out. Now I've noticed that we had some I think rabbits burrow underneath this area here, dig this out and get in there. Oddly enough though, I don't think they were in there during the season, during the growing season last year. I think that was pretty much something that happened after that, more recently. But at any rate, I'm going to monitor this, and if we need to put up reinforcements, we're going to go ahead and do that. I know you can dig down a little further and get that hardware cloth down lower. Looks like they kind of were gnawing at this as well. I don't know if it was bunnies or maybe some other critters, but something definitely was working at this. Maybe the raccoons that we have in the area. Anyway, they'll probably be back this year, and we'll have to fix that up a little bit better. I did fill this in with some dirt. There was a clearly defined burrow underneath that fence. But we'll take it one step at a time, and first things first, we gotta weed this area. So I'm gonna put this camera down for a little bit, weed this area as best I can, get started on that, and resume in a moment here. I don't know what these are, but they got some long roots to them. But we'll just pull these out of here. I guess this is going to be an ongoing struggle. For you expert gardeners out there, don't laugh too hard. But yeah, I'm assuming that weeding's probably going to be your #1 task in a garden. So this was pretty clear only 2 weeks ago, and we've already got a lot of weed activity. It's definitely some good soil, so hopefully our plants will grow as well as the weeds have grown. So we'll just try and attend to this on an ongoing basis. I'm just going to pull out the ones that are easy pickings, and then we'll come back later and do some more of this. I think my biggest challenge in the first year of this garden was just building up the motivation to get out here and do it. And you know, for those of you that work a regular full-time job, this is not something that you necessarily relish at the end of a day of work, coming out and doing this kind of thing. But I think in my case I have to start enjoying it more. I mean, it sounds a little bit strange to say, but I think it's a motivation. I need to motivate myself to get out here and do it. And I think the more I do, the more I'll start to enjoy it. So I'm sure nobody loves picking weeds, but it's got to be done. So now, we planted some plants around the perimeter last year that are supposed to deter critters. I think they're marigolds, and we just kind of planted those around. I don't think they're perennials. If they were, I dug them up, and they're no longer here. But we got that tip from somebody, and I don't know if it was a good tip or not, and I'm not positive that it was marigolds. Might have been something else, but we definitely had a pretty critter-free experience last year, except, like I say, towards the end of the year they were coming in through here. I think it was bunnies, but we'll find out this year. Yeah, still got a lot of grass coming up through here from, you know, because this was originally grass, but it's pretty forgiving in that you start tending to it. And now, like this year, I got out here a couple weeks ago with a rake, and I raked everything out of here, including some remnants of grass that was still kind of dead or dormant. And so did a lot of work with that already. Now, I know this doesn't look perfect, and for you expert gardeners out there, you'll have to cut me a little slack here, but I'm going to go ahead and plant these tomato plants right here in this area now, and then we'll come out and weed some more later. Got a bit of a mosquito problem out here right now. Welcome to gardening. Here's our amount of weeds we pulled out of here. So, got a little ways to go, but I think that's a good start. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put these in the ground. We've got 4 tomato plants, and we've got 2 different types, 2 of each. They're both heirloom tomatoes, and maybe a future discussion we could talk about the difference between heirloom and hybrid seeds and plants. The kind of the overview is that there are companies out there, Monsanto, the big one, that are patenting plants and plant varieties, and the disturbing part about this is what they do is they patent a variety of plant and require farmers or anyone who plants that seed to pay to get their seeds, and seed savers who are used to be where if you were a farmer you'd save a bushel of corn for seed, be your seed corn for next year's crops. And you know, God made plants to perpetuate themselves, and that's done through the seeds of the plants. But companies have gotten in there and tried to make hardier, better plants, which is an admirable thing. That might be debatable, but you know, they've tried to make better plants, more pesticide or bug resistant or fungus resistant, you know, a myriad of different reasons that they get in there and they genetically modify these crops, and ostensibly it's to create a better crop. But you know, we have seen, I think, the results of that in a lot of problems. People with autism, people with celiacs, people with there just seems to be an increase in the kind of diseases and afflictions that people are going through, fibromyalgia, all these things. Yeah, they're reported more, but they're definitely on the rise. I'm not going to sit here and blame GMO crops necessarily. We've got pesticides out there, but we've got all kinds of human meddling into God's creation, and I think that's what's causing a lot of this stuff. It's my opinion. I think there's others that would agree, probably people that would disagree, but at any rate, probably a larger topic, one maybe not for this video, but we have heirloom plants here, and the difference between heirloom and hybrid plants. Heirloom are the ones that were around when the Pilgrims landed in America and beyond, for those that are living in other countries. Heirloom plants, you can take the seeds from the plants, from the fruit and the crop of one year, and you can create plants for the next year. It's called seed saving, and if you want to look that up, just type in seed savers or seed saving in a Google search, and you'll get a lot of good information about that. They're trying to, I think they've successfully outlawed that in some areas. I don't know all the particulars about it, but you know, can you imagine outlawing saving seeds from one year's crop and eliminating people's ability to grow their own crop? God created these plants, you know. But anyway, we won't go there today. But these are heirloom plants, and this is a Homestead heirloom tomato, which means I should be able to take the seeds from this and perpetuate this indefinitely. This is called Homestead heirloom, and I've got two of these. The fruit size, medium, 8 to 9 ounce, and maturity 80 days after planting, full sunlight. And one lesson we learned from last year, spacing 24 to 36 inches apart. Last year I had these little seed beds, and when I planted the plants, I kind of crowded everything in together, and while we did get a lot of tomatoes, the plants were just kind of all over each other. And my wife had pointed out that you want to space them, next time you want to space them out further, and using plant stakes as well, so they can kind of grow up neatly in an organized fashion. So that's those two plants. Then we've got Seattle's Best of All, also an heirloom variety. This one is full sunlight like the others. I would imagine that's probably the case for all tomatoes, full sunlight. Maturity 78 days after planting, spacing 24 to 36 inches, which we already know. Fruit size medium, 4 to 6 ounce. So a little bit smaller fruit size, but we're going to experiment here. This has all been a learning experience. Last year we just took the potting soil bags and placed them over the grass. The idea there was that we didn't have to till the grass up, and the potting soil bag killed the grass underneath, and we just planted directly in those. It was a good success, and the biggest takeaway for me was that with minimal interaction with your garden, nature or God, whatever your belief is, does the rest. And you know, little watering here and there. Obviously, different plants are going to require different watering, but even watering, they say, you don't want to unevenly water the plants. There's probably a million things to know about gardening, which is kind of a nice thing. Keeps you interested in it. You can always learn more about gardening. But we are, just to be upfront about it, we're neophyte gardeners here. This is year number 2, and we know very little, but I think another takeaway is that you don't need to know a lot about it. A little bit of elbow grease goes a long ways, and God kind of does the rest. So we're going to get these in the ground, and if we can fight off these mosquitoes, we'll pause the video and repeat it here in a little bit. Okay, so we're going to put the 2 Homestead tomatoes together, and we'll put the Seattle's Best of All together as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to dig right here. Going to make sure that the soil's pretty good all around it. And as I'm digging into this, I can see this soil is in really good shape, very light. We got a good amount of clay in here too, but it is very light in the sense that it's breaking up real easy. It's not rock solid. And what we will do as we go forward is we'll compost, and we'll keep adding to the soil. So I don't think we'll have to worry about depleting the nutrients out of it too much here. So I'm just going to dig a hole deep enough to cover the roots, and let me see here. I think we just leave it in this biodegradable pot. I'm going to read the instructions just to be sure. Soak pot before planting, cut and remove wrapper, peel off bottom half of pot, and drop pieces in hole, place plant in hole, fill soil, and water thoroughly. So we're going to save this little sign, and here's another good reason to have a EDC knife, because at times like this where you need to cut something. So we've got our Spyderco Endura 4 for that purpose. So let me see here. Yeah, I think as I recall, last year we had a similar situation with the seed beds, and somebody had commented on the video that you need to cut out the bottom of that, and I do remember that now. And so you leave the sides here, but in order for the roots to come out, you want to take the bottom of this off. And they say to throw the pieces in the hole. I guess there's nutrients in this peat. I believe that's a peat moss kind of a material. And that makes a lot of sense, because that's where these are going to want to go. So there we go. We've broken that up. I think we'll put in a little bit more soil on the top, and then fill it in. And I think I mentioned earlier, I'll have to get back out here and do some more weeding. And again, this is year number 2, and I don't even really consider the first year very much effort, because all I did was take those potting soil bags and put the plants directly into that. So very minimal effort on my part in year number 1, and I think this year we're going to give a little bit more attention to this. So there we go. This plant is planted. I'm going to put the little sign, Homestead Heirloom Tomato. We'll put that over here for now. And as I'm viewing these through the fence, I'll know which ones are which. Okay, so we'll do number 2 now here. And again, they're saying 24 inches apart, and I think we're going to be right in that area. Maybe we might be a little closer than that, but certainly not as bad as last year when we had these things growing all over each other. And you know, surprisingly, even last year when we made all those mistakes, we still got tomatoes. We got a lot of them. We had more tomatoes than we knew what to do with. And I think that's kind of, you know, kind of the theme with respect to this kind of thing. Of course, if you're relying on something as your only source of food, things get a little bit more serious, but part of the whole process for us is to do some gardening now so that, you know, if we ever did have to rely on it more heavily, we'd have a little bit more of a skill set around it than if we just waited. But even in those cases, you know, and I think I was reading about, I don't know if it was Sarajevo or what, where people had to put together gardens, and I somehow imagined that, you know, these people were putting this stuff together, having not necessarily ever dealt with it before. You know, necessity is the mother of invention, and, you know, people do what they have to do to survive. And I think one of the pleasant surprises that I'm seeing is that nature, as well as being very unforgiving in a survival situation, sometimes it can be very generous as well. So all the more reason to prepare, but also not to stress about it too much if you're starting in advance. I mean, if you're surviving in a situation where you're immediately thrust into a situation where you need to survive, then obviously there's more of an urgency. But for those of us, and that I hope pretty much all of us right now, are in a better position today than we would be further down the road, with the economy getting worse and worse. So the thought there is that, you know, if you get started now when times aren't as bad, you'll be a lot better off than had you waited. So I think I might have buried my sign. No, there it is. Okay. We can remember what we got planted here anyway. But I do want to see how these different types of plants fare in this climate. Now, I'm assuming too that the home centers in our area are going to sell things that'll grow in our area. So we got a little bit of luck in that respect. So we've got 2 of them planted. I'm going to move this camera over here for our second set of plants. All right. I'll tell you one thing I'm noticing out here, just doing this little bit of gardening is, even though it's a little bit of work, and you know, I mean, this is not huge physical exertion right here at all. I think the biggest physical exertion I had in this whole process was last week when I was out here kind of weeding the area. But I think a true farmer would laugh at this. This is not hard work. And the thing I was going to mention was that it sure seems peaceful, you know. All I'm doing here is digging in the dirt a little bit, and yet I'm feeling good, getting something accomplished, and I'm anxious to see how these plants are going to do. Now, one thing is, this ground below where I had the potting soil bags is a little less rich and a little more clumpy than the soil over to the left where we were a minute ago. And I think part of that might be due to the fact that I did till that soil a little bit, whereas this didn't get any tilling because it was underneath those bags. So if anyone uses that method of planting, where you take potting soil bags and you put them directly down on the ground to kill the grass and give you kind of a head start, you might just keep that in mind for the following year. You'll want to till in some good soil, and I'm kind of in luck here because I've got a bit of it from the top over here that I can kind of mix in. So, and we got a pretty straight line here. I think we're ready to put in plant number 3. And again, on this side we've got the Seattle's Best of All plants. Now, I've had these plants sitting around outside longer than I should have probably, but we just didn't have very good weather for planting. Again, I'm going to take the bottom of this off. It just breaks off very easily. Yes, I believe this is a peat moss material that they make these out of. And I'm leaving the outside there, and I'm just leaving the ring around it and just taking off the bottom. I should have probably left that little bug alone, but instinctually when I see ants I kill them because most of the time I'm indoors. Maybe I need an outdoor and an indoor persona. Here we go. I'm going to fill this in. Again, this is not rocket science. I'm just going to break this soil up. And it's, even with the amount of clay in here, this is a very, very good, airy mixture that we got here. So there we have it. Now, this plant here, the Seattle's Best of All, has got that really rich tomato plant smell to it, and not so much on the Homestead Heirloom. Just a little observation there. Now we're going to go ahead and dig this remaining hole. And you'll probably notice this is way more clumpy and a lot more clay than the first two, but we'll remedy that by mixing in some of our lighter soil. Yeah, I know my dad used to have tomato plants in the city, and the big thing for us was the composting. We had, what do we have, 4 cottonwood trees, and the neighbor next door to us had a cottonwood tree, so we got a ton of leaves every year. And I remember my dad would burn the leaves, you know. He'd take them out by the curb and he'd burn those leaves up. Just have a bit of a bonfire there. And boy, I remember we used to do that every year for the longest time. And then we got a neighbor in there that didn't like that. And one year he called the fire department. So Chicago Fire Department comes out with their truck. I don't remember if the siren was going or not, but I remember seeing that fire truck pull up, and they pulled out the big hose and put that fire out. It's kind of funny as a kid to see that. Seemed like a lot of work over nothing, you know. But so after that, I think it was probably a good thing in the long run, because after that, I guess my dad decided to start composting the leaves. He used to get Mother Earth News magazine, and I'm subscribed to that now myself. That and Backwoods Home magazine, and they've got some really great articles on just all kinds of stuff, gardening, homesteading, just so many valuable things in those magazines. In fact, you can get all the back issues of Mother Earth News on CD. I purchased that, and I figured if the internet ever goes away, I'll have a resource that I can turn to as long as we have power. Fire up that laptop and read those magazines. I've already read a little bit of them, and just a really good resource, a lot of good information about gardening and just everything under the sun. A lot of stuff preppers are going to really be interested in. So anybody looking for a really good resource for ongoing reading on these topics, I highly recommend Mother Earth News and Backwoods Home magazine. One of the things about Mother Earth News is, you know, they've been in this prepper slash self-sufficiency game long before a lot of us were even around, but good resource. So there we go. Looks like we've got our plants planted evenly. They're spaced out about 24 inches apart. The soil underneath is pretty loose. We got our fence around to keep the critters out. I'll have to come in and do some more weeding as we go, but I think we got a pretty good start to our garden, and we will keep you posted down the road on our progress. And thanks for watching. We enjoy your comments, so by all means let us know what you think. We'll talk to you down the road. Thanks.